morning. Today is Gianfranco's birthday. He's 2 years old. I am very excited because I'm making my favorite cake. This is the cake that I made for my wedding day. This is the cake that I make for many celebrations. It's so delicious. It's lemon and ricotta. I've already done a video on it because I came up with this recipe during quarantine, during COVID, like sort of several years ago before I was married. And so many of you tell me how you love it and make it frequently. But in that video, I kind of served it like an afternoon tea cake. I did it in a loaf pan and just cut little slices. But I've found over the years that I've made it many, many times that I tend to make it more as a spectacular kind of celebration cake, like with 3 tiers and lots of mascarpone and lots of strawberries, or sometimes I do berries. Today I'm going to do berries because strawberries aren't in season. And it's just something that never fails me. I was thinking of doing just a classic sponge cake with jam and cream, but then I thought, why? Because it's just sort of, it is light and airy and it's lovely, but this has more texture because of the ricotta, and I find that it elicits oohs and ahs from everyone as soon as they put a forkful in their mouth. I like to cover it with mascarpone because mascarpone is like an Italian, thicker Italian cream, and it just helps, like if you're preparing it like I am on the day that you're serving it, it's just you cut out that extra step of having to kind of beat icing sugar and butter and make a buttercream. And also I find a normal icing or frosting, as North Americans would say, it tends to be very sweet, and I like that mascarpone you can just add a little bit of sugar if you want, but if not, you can just add some lemon zest and make it really fresh, and it's a nice counterpoint to the cake. So that's what I like to do. The only thing with mascarpone, and this is what I had for my wedding cake, this was a challenge, was that once you put it on, it can kind of start seeping into the cake. I don't kind of do like a crumb coat and then put it in the fridge or anything like you would do with a normal icing or frosting. So I like to just layer it on, dollop it on, and you would have seen in my videos before how I do it. Maybe I'll insert some footage of how I kind of generally serve it. Today I'm doing three layers. Now I don't have the same size. I have 2 of the same size cake pan, but I don't have 3. So I'm going to do 3 and like 1. Can you see that? Yeah, one big one, medium, and then small on top of each other like this. And I'm just tripling the recipe, which I've done before. And obviously I'll just sort of measure it out evenly so that it seems like more or less they're kind of all the same thickness, but it may not be perfect, but it doesn't really matter because in any case I'll be watching their cooking time that might be a little bit different. However, the main thing is to get it in the oven because it needs to cool down obviously before I get the mascarpone in. So the first thing I do, hang on, perhaps I should just change the camera angle because you might want to see the table. Okay, let's put an apron on, and look how big my bump is now. It's so big. Baby was awake all night kicking, so I didn't get the best sleep, but I'm excited. Gianfranco is so cute. He's just, every morning, he makes me so happy. It's just so cheerful, and I go in and get him, or Guido brings him into our bed and we have cuddles and everything, and he's like, "Buongiorno, mama, good morning, mama," and it's super, super sweet. So the first thing I do before I even preheat my oven, I chop up my butter and take it out of the fridge because obviously if you're using a stand mixer or beaters or something like that, I suppose it doesn't matter so much, but for me, if I'm just beating it by hand, I want the butter to be nice and soft so that I can cream it with my sugar. Then I preheat my oven, which is 180 degrees Celsius. I have my lemons. I normally use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I normally use 6 medium-sized lemons. These are a bit small, so I'm using 7. I have my ricotta. I take that out of the fridge as well. I like to have my pans already already lined, so that then, because once you add baking powder and you sort of this is creating the air in your cake, and you want to get the batter in straight away. So I just like to have that all ready, and that's it. That's it. How should we start? Do you know, in my recipe on the site, I have it starting with the flour, mixing the flour and the baking powder. But generally, that's not what I do, actually. I generally just start by creaming my butter and sugar. So let's get this in here. Look at this giant spoon that I have. Okay. Oh, it's nice and soft. I was going to film this last night. I was going to make the cakes last night, and I was just too tired. And I decided, you know what, cake is always better fresh, made on the day that you eat it. So, especially this one. Okay, so that's all my sugar. I don't know if Gianfranco will actually eat this. He would probably be happy with berries and yogurt, which we might give him, because he hasn't actually ever had sugar before. I try to sort of keep him away from sort of lots of processed food, and pretty much everything he has is from the garden and our olive oil. Obviously he eats fruit, so there's sugar in that. But I find that it's been so easy, because if we go out some places and there's other children that are begging for chocolates and gelato and everything else, and he's just content. He doesn't seem to need all that yet. But of course, at some stage, we will definitely introduce him to sugar on special occasions, because it's a nice ritual to have. I just think not every day, right? Like when I was a little girl, we would only have ice cream on Sunday, and it would be a big ritual. Like we would walk down to the ice cream shop with my father, and my sister and I would so look forward to like choosing out our one ice cream, and that was like, that was a lovely tradition. But sometimes I think if you don't have something every day, it becomes even more special. So I am just trying to cream this as best I can. Oh, you know what I should do? I should take out the berries from the freezer, because berries are so expensive, and I find that the frozen ones are a little bit less expensive. So I'm going to take those out of the freezer now so that they can sit and defrost. Okay, so here are my berries. It's 1.2 kilos of berries. I'm going to use a lot just because I want to put some on every layer. And yeah, these are just defrosting, and that way I can strain a little bit of the juice, because we don't want too much of the juice. The only thing about frozen berries is they have a lot of liquid that comes out, and then that will kind of make our cake a bit soggy. So I'll just put these over here, and I've also creamed my sugar and butter. So you really just want to make sure that it's kind of all combined and lovely and soft. And if you have beaters, use beaters. If you have a stand mixer, use that. The creaming of the butter and sugar is quite important for cakes, so don't just do it and leave like chunks of butter in. You really want it to be all lovely and smooth like this, if you can see. Okay, now the next step that I'm going to do is probably the most laborious, which is zesting and juicing these lemons. Should I take this opportunity to sit down? Yes, I think I should. So I think in the recipe I always say zest your lemons first, because if you cut them, then they're hollow, and it's more difficult to zest them. So I zest them directly into the bowl, and I find this just really gives such a wonderful flavor and fragrance to the cake. Obviously, if you're not a fan of lemon, just add less. But it really does lift the cake, and I find that having the that citrus element just works so well with the rich, creamy mascarpone. Also, I like to take my ricotta out of the fridge so that when I'm stirring it, it's not cold. Have my eggs out at room temperature as well. The thing about a tiered cake, this is always going to be rustic. You don't have to have it be perfect. So obviously I like springform pans. I just find it's just more reliable. You can always take off the outside and be sure that you're not going to have any problems with it sticking. So that's what I use. But clearly if you were wanting a perfect edge, using the paper doesn't create that, but I don't mind if it's got a little bit of crinkles around the edge, because I find that the overall presentation is not one that's pristine and perfect. It's sort of more rustic and just with sort of that decadence, like dollops of mascarpone and the berries sort of falling everywhere, and oh my goodness, it's so good. So even though I might give myself a little day off from my non-sugar diet, which I've been on for the pregnancy, and have a piece, because I just can't resist this. This is it's truly my favorite cake. I love my in-laws. I love seeing them, and they're not your typical judgmental in-laws, but I still get nervous when they come because, you know, I want everything to be pretty and nice for them. Fortunately, it's a beautiful day and we can sit outside, and it's so lucky that we're here in October and it just feels like a spring day. The birds are going crazy singing outside and it's so warm. I just have this light, am I in focus? Hope so. I just have this light dress on, and I am definitely relishing these last days of warmth. Now we have all our zest and the juice. The thing when you double or triple a recipe, or I guess just with any cake batter in general, you never want to have a bowl that's too small because you'll just end up making a mess, and it makes cooking so difficult because you've got to be careful about splashing. So I always choose the biggest. And if you don't have a big mixing bowl, just use a saucepan. Sometimes I use a high saucepan just so that I can be sure that I can get a good strenuous stir going without feeling bridled by the size of the mixing bowl. Okay. Now I have 9 eggs, which I'm going to add one at a time. And that's just to incorporate them slowly into the batter and make sure they're all amalgamated. And with my ricotta, I have 1,000 grams. When I tripled it, it comes to 1,080 grams. So I just added 80 grams of natural yogurt, and that can just make up for the extra ricotta that I was missing. I've never made it with all yogurt, but I imagine it might work as well. If you can't get a hold of ricotta, perhaps you could use a thick yogurt. And the last one, there we go. Now I'm adding 3 teaspoons of vanilla, which is just such a lovely flavor, again, to combine with the fresh citrus. Okay, oh my gosh, my hairdresser cut these pieces shorter, but they're so annoying because they come down on my face. All right. Okay, so now we're almost there. At this point, we just want to add our flour with a little bit of salt. I say 3 pinches, so I don't know, let's just do 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. Okay. And I have some baking powder, and I'm just going to sift it in. I say to sort of mix in half of the flour and then add all of the ricotta and then the rest of the other half of the flour. So what I might do is just, do I want a dry spoon? Yeah, probably. I'll just put in half of the flour with half of the baking powder, and I definitely want to sift it because I want this cake to be lump free. You will find that sometimes the ricotta will still give you a lot of lumps, but you want to be sure that's why you want to be sure that the flour is definitely lovely and smooth, so that if you see a lump, you just know it's a bit of ricotta, and that is fine. Okay. Guido just called, and they're arriving in 15 minutes, not my in-laws, but my parents and husband and Gianfranco. And I want to have this in the oven by then so I can start on the main courses. I might just add a little bit more flour. Okay. A lot of you have been asking me, what's the plan for the new baby? Am I going to do things differently? What am I doing with the hospital? We actually went to Florence and had an appointment, a private appointment with a doctor, just to test out a different hospital than the one I gave birth in last time. I don't know, it's a little bit hard to analyze a hospital. You can't exactly go to them and say, oh, do you have horribly rude staff? I mean, what are they going to say? You can just ask around with other people, but it all depends to when people gave birth. Was it during COVID? Did they just get lucky? I mean, if you get someone nice, it can just change your whole experience of a hospital. But as many of you know, I got several people who were just awful. So we're definitely not going back to the same hospital. Lots of you have said, could I have a home birth? I always wanted to have a home birth, but it's not. I'm just adding the ricotta, by the way. I might just mix it with the whisk to sort of break it up a little bit. So yeah, I would love to have a home birth, but because I hemorrhaged so severely last time, and we don't know whether it's because they pulled the placenta out too early or whether I was just hemorrhaging. We will never know that, so I don't want to lay the fault on the medical team, because perhaps I was just always going to hemorrhage and lose all that blood. But the fact that I did means that there is a risk that I could hemorrhage again, and it's literally life-threatening. So Guido was like, no, let's not risk it, and let's be in a hospital, which is fine because you never really know what will happen. But I know that home births have become super popular in the UK, and I don't know about Australia, but I just listened to a lot of podcasts that they're all sort of saying how the government really wants to support the idea of women just having a midwife and giving birth at home. But hopefully, who knows, hopefully things will be better this time. Obviously you want to make sure you're draining your ricotta, not having any extra liquid go in. So you see I'm just crushing this up as best I can, and it is a lot of ricotta. There is something to be said for preparing cakes the night before. It means you get up in the morning and they're all cooled and you can just decorate them calmly. But I don't know, my fear is having a dry or not totally delicate crumb, so I just like to take all precautions and prepare the cake on the morning that I'm, with this cake, on the morning that I'm serving it. But we should be okay. Because you're just kind of dolloping the mascarpone on, you're not exactly like icing or piping complicated things onto the top. Often I will just have the cakes cool, and then when everyone is clearing, when they're clearing away the plates from the last course, I'll just come in here into the kitchen and literally decorate the cake while everyone's sitting at the table. And that way it's not, I don't have to worry about like the berries seeping in or the mascarpone kind of drying out or seeping in too much to the cake. I've also made these as little cupcakes as well, and they are delicious. I took them to a children's birthday party, and children love them, adults love these. This cake, it's just such a pleaser. Okay, that is all, and then we have my 80 grams of yogurt, which is, I mean, honestly, I think you could just do 1,000. You could just do 1 kilo of ricotta and that's it. It's not really that important to be so precise. Okay, my bowl is super full now, so I just have to be careful with mixing. I do want to break up all the ricotta, but I don't want to overmix it, so that's why I'm just using the whisk here to kind of break it up. I mean, you may have lumps of, can you see in here? Probably not, but you may have some lumps of ricotta, and it doesn't really matter because if someone bites into a lump of ricotta, it's fine. But if that bothers you, feel free to just mix it until it's completely smooth. I tend to do sort of halfway. There are still some lumps, but okay, I think I'm just going to clean this up a little. Now I'm going to add the last of the flour and baking powder. We are definitely at the limits of this bowl. Just switching to a wooden spoon so that it's just a gentle folding in of the flour. And now I'm going to try and evenly distribute it between the 3 cake pans. Just add a little bit of butter to this side here where the paper doesn't come up. And you could just do this with 2 cakes and it's lovely, and I've done that before, in which case you just double the recipe instead of tripling it. But the thing is about this is I just find everybody always wants seconds, so my fear is just never having enough cake. So I always want to make a large quantity so that everyone can have seconds if they please. And then with the cooking, just watch it, because you don't want it to go super golden on top. You just want it to be set and I find that it's best when it's really just only just cooked, and because it's got so much ricotta, it's always going to be a very wet cake, like a moist cake. So it's not going to be like super puffy and rise up. It's still going to be quite dense, which I love. It kind of gives it like a little bit of a cheesecake quality. Okay, I think that's about right. I don't know. Okay, there we go. 1, 2, 3. Let's get these in the oven. Okay, now I shall clean up and get started on the pasta sauce and the main course. And I'm feeling good. Yeah.